han komin, kjola hevet fix I fjuna I flej. Ekavin han komin new.
Welcome to today's episode of our holiday countdown Stitch Along 2024, in which we will be looking a little bit closer at some samplers from the collection of the Nordiska Museet. Now, in episode 2 of this countdown Stitch Along, I have shown you the museum in Stockholm, which is my favorite museum in the world, and but that was more of a look at the museum building and its history. And today I thought, like, you know what, I'm gonna do a little digging into the archives of the museum and see if I can find some nice samplers, and they have a couple, just a few. So we're going to have a little look. I am not an expert in Scandinavian / Swedish samplers, but I do know what I like, and I'm going to talk through what I find special about them, what appeals to me, and things that I just noticed that I might think that you might enjoy as well. So let's have a look at the first sampler, shall we? This is a sampler from 1786, and it was stitched in a really nice way, in that you have like this really traditional border that you see on lots of different samplers. And then there is a mix of motifs like that you see on lots of samplers, but also religious pictures. We have the large central picture, which is most likely Moses in the desert seeing the burning bush. And I think it's a really beautiful image how she worked it. There's the bush on fire, the Hebrew letters Yahweh are standing there, and on the right hand side we see the crucifixion and the two Marys weeping, and then on the left hand side we see the Lamb of God, the Agnus Dei motif. And the Agnus Dei motif is a motif that we see in the 1500s in pattern books, and then that sort of resurfaces throughout Europe, but it's a really old motif that just keeps popping up on all these samplers. There is a really fun little squirrel in one of the trees, which is quite a strange mix. And this is also the first sampler that we see today that has a parrot on it, and that's something I have noticed. Roses and parrots you see on a lot of Scandinavian samplers. Right at the bottom are two really neat little squares, which have like sort of pattern reference pieces, and that's also something I have noticed on the samplers that I dug up in the Nordiska Museet, that they seem to have this, a lot of them. So it's not just a reference tool for stitching alphabets, stitching numbers, and have little motifs that you can use, but also like proper decorative stitching for large surfaces, cushions and these types of things. So yeah, that's 1786, this one. The next one is a little bit older, 1746, and this is a collection of beautiful colors, first of all, but it has a whole bunch of different stitches. So we see eyelets, we see bargello stitches, which are the ones that look like flames sort of gripping into each other. There is the queen stitch or rococo stitch, whatever you want to call it. And there's general cross stitch, and I assume long-armed cross stitches as well, as that is a very Scandinavian technique that you see in lots of these samplers. Eyelets that we see here are really interesting as well, as she used some diamond shaped eyelets, so not just the square ones that we normally have, but the diamond ones. So that's quite intriguing as well there, and it's a really lovely stitch if you want to make a big background and you want to fill it up with a decorative stitch. The diamond eyelets are really lovely. So it's a wonderful sampler, this one. The next one is from 1781, and it's an odd sampler. I love it because it is so genuinely weird. So right at the top, very box standard, quite boring actually sampler, with just a little border and then some letters and a few crowns, nothing special there. And then a little sort of wreath and some flowers, and probably some motifs would have been added to this sampler. But then boom, we have this literally like a wall and bricks, and the bricks each hold like little samples that could be used for huge filling pieces. So we again see bargello stitches, we see eyelets, there's queen stitches, and probably other stitches that I can't quite pick up from the tiny image on the website. But it is a unique sampler, I think. It's so special to have this this joined thing of these blocks of patterns and then traditional sampler motifs together in one sampler. The only samplers that I have seen it on as well is one in the collection in Boston, which is like a three-dimensional table/altar looking thing. The bottom bit is full of beautiful decorative stitches, but then on top of it is a wreath, baskets with fruit. It's just a genuinely beautiful sampler, that one, so finely decorated, and that is linked to the Nuremberg samplers apparently. There is another Nuremberg sampler in the museum in the Met in New York from 1691, which is really stunning as well, which has a little bit more the floral motifs that I would associate with the Nuremberg samplers as well. But both samplers are interesting and quite curious to sort of see the link with perhaps those samplers. But perhaps the Boston sampler is not a Nuremberg sampler at all, but is in fact a Scandinavian sampler. The next one is a sampler that personally I like for aesthetic reasons better than the previous one, as this seems more of a unified whole. We have, again, that sort of quite traditional border and a set of alphabets, but then we have this beautiful heart at the center from which all these little branches emerge, and then there's some birds and a huge crown. And the crown is quite important as well, because in the Nordic countries the women would wear a crown when they got married. I think they still might do for church weddings, but it's a beautiful thing. So I think this crown is also more of a wedding symbol, together with the heart, as a beautiful union there. And then there's the two little mannequins as well, which I really adore in this sampler. The sampler that I want to show you next from 1747 really amused me. It's a beautiful sampler, first of all. It has a gorgeous large vase with flowers, beautifully decorated, really lovely pattern on the vase itself as well. And then it has, again, parrots, as we have seen on several of the other samplers as well. But for me, the two lions with their rather surprised expressions, just that's for me the winner on this sampler. It's just really amusing to sort of see these huge expressions of these two lions here. So yeah, that's a wonderful sampler that I really like. The next sampler that I have for you today is from 1812, and it's a sampler more as I imagine a bit more Scandinavian samplers to be. I would expect this to be in Carl Larsen's house, for instance. It's red, it's green, it's lively, it's joyous, it's got floral patterns, it's got a red house. I mean, it's just a beautiful pattern. I really love the rose border right at the top. It's a beautiful bright green, quite unusually, and it is a little bit Christmassy as well with the red and the green. I think it's really lovely. And again, two blocks of patterns. So we've got the Bargello-like pattern on the right-hand side, and I think it is rice stitches on the left-hand side. So all in all, a really beautiful sampler. Cute scenes, and just really folksy, really wonderful, that one. The next one is stitched by Sophie Louise Hultingen in 1856, and I wanted to show you this one because... not because it's a spectacular sampler, but because it is a red sampler, which I really like. And it shares similarities to the Bristol samplers with some of the patterns that are repeated. And that shows you that the girls who were stitching the Bristol patterns were using pattern examples, booklets with tiny little examples in them. And yeah, these girls were using the same motifs. So you see in the 19th century that these motifs are much more shared over borders as well, because of the printed booklets becoming very much available to everyone. There is a little sampler in the Nordiska Museet from, I'm assuming, the start of the 19th century. It's definitely made before 1879, because that's when it was purchased by the museum for their collection. And it moves me because it is a beautiful display of a girl wanting some patterns and motifs for reference. So we have some alphabet motifs there, some lettering, and we have a few decorative borders. And it's just really simple, really lovely colors, very faded, very cheap probably as well. But it is just really moving. I love the semi-meander border that is there, the white one. Then the V shape sort of, yeah, it's It's got something, I can't say exactly why, but it moves me. I think it's a really adorable, sweet sampler. I couldn't find any identifiers who might have made this, but yeah, I think it's just a fantastic sampler, this one. Someone took the care and the love to create this little piece with these lovely little colours. And yeah, and now the museum can take care of it. The next sampler is the complete polar opposite of the other one. It was made by a rich girl, most likely. She had gorgeous colored silks. It's even though there's big holes in it, the colors themselves are still stunning. I wouldn't be surprised if this was actually stitched on like a wool or a wool blend material, and hence the huge holes and the stitching still being intact. But it is beautiful. I mean, just look at those cherubs flying. It is so finely worked. There's the lion's rampant holding the shield. There's a stag there, a beautiful basket filled with flowers. The colors are just spectacular, really. And yeah, that's one from 1739. And again, this kind of reminds me of Nuremberg samplers for some reason. I get that vibe from the stitching, the high quality of it, the finesse and everything. And yet again, parrots. So they must have really enjoyed their parrots. It's a little bit like on the Norfolk samplers, how we see parakeets. Couldn't think of the word there for a second. The parakeets were very important to people in Norfolk. They had been brought over by the Flemish people when they moved to Norfolk. And that tradition of keeping parakeets reflected by the sampler tradition, where you see these little yellow birds on Norfolk samplers. And perhaps this is something as well with the Scandinavian samplers, that there is an inherent love for parrots, or maybe they symbolize something that I'm not aware of. Maybe it's like a parrot repeats something, so in that way it might also be like a religious thing, that like don't just ape things, so to speak. But I'm not sure what the significance of the parrot is. The next series of samplers are fascinating to me because they share a wonderful sort of little creature, which you don't see on a lot of samplers. This is from 1805, and we have the standard border, which is not spectacular, some letters, which are okay, a little wreath, some tulips, all very cute, and a big honking crayfish. And if you're wondering, crayfish or lobster, they look very similar, but the crayfish is living in sweet water. And there's a lot of lakes in Sweden, and on the 15th of August, it's crayfish season, as you can see in this painting by Carl Larsson. And people really go crazy for the crayfish. There's big crayfish parties, people go outside, they prepare them and everything. And I think that this is such a cultural significant thing for summer in Sweden, that these girls probably put that as a signifier, a symbol of the summer months there. So it's a very joyous little symbol on that one. This one from 1785 has a big lobster as well. It has Joshua and Caleb. But what I really love about this one is the ground at the bottom. All those little birds that she put on it. There are some stags there as well. Some really lovely trees. There's a bird in a tree. It is just a really beautiful, beautiful sampler, this one. It's again in extremely poor condition. But I mean, just look, the colors are fantastic. The next one from 1734 is spectacular, and I wish it was in my collection. I literally love everything about this sampler. It is so good. First of all, we have beautiful alphabets. There is the large decorative alphabet, which I have on one of my samplers from Scandinavia, and I used it on the Midsummer sampler that I have. I redesigned that pattern and changed some of the lettering, and I used a lettering more Scandinavian, and you see that on this sampler, and we've seen it on a couple of other samplers as well. So they're more like a angular lettering, 3 wide with 1 open stitch as a little hole, sort of creating a perforated lettering, which is really lovely. So yeah, this 1734 sampler is just really joyous. So right at the top we've got all the lettering and stuff, and then at the bottom we have this really bizarrely cheerful double-headed eagle. No seriousness there at all, There is a pot of carnations, there is a peacock, a lovely wreath with the initials of the maker or family members. There is a fish, which is something very unusual, and it's a very realistic looking fish as well. It has a pattern on the back and everything. There's a little rooster, we've got stags, we've got flowers, we've got a beautiful lady wearing an enormously oversized crown. There's even a skull and crossbones, which is just really amusing to me. And again, we have the crayfish, which is just fantastic. So it's I think out of all of these samplers, this is one of my favorites, and I really, really wish it was mine. The last one in the crayfish department is one from 1807, and yet again there's a parrot on it. We see again Joshua and Caleb, so they weren't just popular in the Netherlands. You see them on Scandinavian samplers a lot as well. Crucifixion we have again roses, roosters, stags. So we have all of those quintessentially Scandinavian things that we have been seeing in those samplers. And again, a crayfish. So it's fascinating how this sampler, and I kept it as one of the last ones to show you because it's not even the most exciting one, but it has these really important elements that sort of tell us like, yeah, this is most likely a Scandinavian sampler. And what I've noticed as well is the initials that are in those little sort of cartouches with the little crown above it. That seems to be a very Scandinavian thing as well. I've seen it on Dutch samplers, similar, but the Danish and Swedish samplers and Norwegian samplers that I have seen, they tend to have it a lot more, where they have that little crowned thing with a cartouche with the names of family members on it. So yeah, it's a lovely little sampler, this one. The very last one that I want to share today with you is one that I think is so in the spirit of Carl Larsson as well. I mean, you would expect this nearly in his house. It's beautiful. It's got greens, pinks, reds, teal colours. A wonderful domestic scene. There is a cupboard with chairs around it, a huge plant with a very cheerful flowering a plant inside, little yellow birds we have a beautiful lady in a nice dress and a husband wearing knickerbockers, pink knickerbockers, which is quite hysterical. There is a squirrel and a rather terrifying creature in the corner, which I am assuming is just an unfortunately stitched dog or cat, but it's quite unidentifiable now with the stitch losses as well. I think this is a spectacular sampler. I really love it. There's some fruit as well on this one. She's really used all of the areas that she could stitch, and it has the long-armed cross stitches as well, which is something that I talked with Ruth about as well, for the cushions that she has reproduced. Originally those were stitched with long-armed crosses as well, or twistsöm as they call them in Sweden. Yeah, all in all, I think this is just a wonderful sampler, and it is sort of the one that I wanted to close this talk today as well, because yeah, this for me is so quintessentially Scandinavian, and I think it ties nicely together as well with Carl Larsson and his cozy interiors. So yes, I hope you enjoyed this little sharing of some samplers. I do plan to do some more of these chats in the future, just picking out stuff that I enjoy and like. And that's also stuff that you could expect on my Patreon page. There you will be able to watch my videos a little bit earlier than on the regular channel. And they will be ad-free as well, which is nice. So you don't have any mid-roll and pre-post-roll ads that you have to sit through. There will be little extras as well. There will be maybe previews on patterns. I was thinking, you know, we can do the occasional Zoom call with fellow Patreon supporters. So I think it will be a nice community. So if you want to join, it starts at €2 per month. I kept it really at the minimum price that I can do for this. Because I want it to be as accessible as possible, and I have decided not to do any tiers either. So it's not like you give me €10 a month and then you will get access to even more stuff. Everyone has the same access in the Patreon page, with €2 per month. So I think it's nice, accessible, that everyone can join if they choose to. You can come in anytime, you can leave Patreon at any time as well if you wish to. You could also make the amount higher if you so wish. You have to do that at the setup page thing, but €2 is fantastic. If you want to do that, I would be very happy with that. And I am really excited to go into 2025 with a new challenge to sort of stimulate myself to produce more content, to share more things with you guys, and to have more personal chats with you, to get to know you guys better in the posts and stuff, read your comments and thoughts and things, and meet you guys during Zoom chats. I think that would be really nice as well. So I am really excited about this. I hope you will join the Patreon as well. The link is down at the bottom as well. For now, thank you so much for watching. This Stitch Along this year has been really special with all of your wonderful comments and your support. And we've already started planning next year's as well, which is very exciting. It's the pattern is already done, and yeah, I'm beyond excited about all of that. But yes, we are looking forward to having you next year as well. But for now, happy stitching, keep safe, look after yourself, stay warm, and I will see you very soon in another video. Take care, bye bye.